Hello,
So,
Tammy.
Dr. Rob. We are fortunate to have a nice group of people here, but we also have some questions that we didn't attend to last week. We ran out of time. Um, so I have captured those, and I'm going to start with, I can't remember if we did some of these. So I'm going to ask you them. So what is the difference between a chronic cheating and being an SA? I don't think we answered that one. And I think it's a really good question of how do you go, is this person, because I know we've talked before with people that go, I'm not a sex addict, but they've cheated 30 times, so, and I'm just making up a number. So,
Well, in some ways, it's hard to see until you interview the person and find out their history. Because when two people are cheating and having affairs, you don't know until you know that this person had seven and they saw 100 sex workers and they were looking at porn 3 times a day. You really don't know until you interview them. But I can say how I think of these people, which is I think of someone who's cheating, um, one at a time, maybe some time in between, as immature. I wrote about that and in the Out of the Doghouse, because Out of the Doghouse is a book for all men who've cheated to try to find a way to have empathy for their partners. And I so the way I talked about it is, when you become a mature human being and you're in a relationship, you just don't think of me when you go out in the world. You think about the both of you. And I think part of immaturity is being able to sort of like put that person out of your head. Or, when I go to the store, Tammy, and I'm shopping for the holidays, I look for something for, let's say, you, but I'm also thinking, what would my husband like? What would this person like? And I'm seeing things. And so it's not just me that I have in mind or the other person, it's my whole world. And I think for people who are really immature, they don't keep other people and situations in their head when they go out. They just haven't learned how to keep that person, I use the word in mind. That person is not in mind. But sex addicts, we're a different breed. We don't have one affair, we have five. And then usually we're having one affair while we're getting into the next affair, while we're also hitting on the person at work. And it rarely, in my experience, and Tammy, please correct me, is just one affair with one person that I've been having for years, or two or three affairs I had over whatever period of time. Or people are having multiple affairs in multiple situations. They're having sex with coworkers. They're having affairs with completely inappropriate people. Not that anyone is appropriate, but a client, a coworker, Me Too situations, the next door neighbor, having sex with someone in their house, in the bed where they're married. I mean, our folks go to extraordinary lengths to get what they want, not just because they want someone and they want to hide it from their spouse, but because their whole life is surrounded by this kind of behavior. And there's a history. Almost all the men that we work with, they had, as I say to many of you spouses, they had this problem before they ever met you. And it's so typical. Tammy knows I do these 2-hour consultations and I sit with folks for 2 hours and help them try to sort through their life and determine their next steps. And, I so often hear this come up, which is, oh, I only had an affair, or it wasn't that big a deal, or it wasn't that frequent, or, and there is absolutely a difference between the person who has done one or two things and the person who's done it repetitively. And I think so. Anyway, there's much, much more I could say. But Tammy, what you want to throw some stuff out there and I'll come in
well,
behind you?
yeah, I was thinking when you were talking that it's easy, like even with the example you gave, or the one I gave before of like, X amount of affairs, it's easy for a sex addict in particular to compartmentalize and go, oh, I'm not that bad because I didn't, or oh, I didn't have sex in my house, I only did it in Vegas, or what, so when you're looking for justification for your behavior that has been incredibly hurtful to someone you care about, or is problematic in your workplace, like you mentioned, having sex with a client or coworker or something, in a hashtag Me Too. I just saw on the news that Harvey Weinstein got another court, although he's in prison, he's going to more jail. And I was like, that's the reality, like, and people are able to compartmentalize and go, oh, that those bad things won't happen to me. Mine was whatever. And so I think it's really important, at some point, if it's just cheating, stop. If you can't stop, get help. And that's, I think, what is really meaningful about the work that our team is doing. I think you mentioned the expert consultations, and I think having clarity, it's validating for partners. I hear that consistently, that partners, feel heard, and are validated, because if they've been gaslit, if they've been told, oh, it's just not that big of a deal, or I only did it once,
Or it's your fault.
oh, that yeah, yeah, to have the ability to help identify what the real truth is, on some level, and for there to be hope. I mean, I hear often from the couples, it's often couples, it can be individuals, but from the couples, that they have hope that one partner can get the help that they need and the other partner can get the support that they need, and that there is a path forward. Not always, some of them, it's, I absolutely am digging my heels in, but to me, this is, if it's chronic cheating, I mean, it feels like splitting hairs. If it's chronic cheating, one label or another, it still is problematic for the relationship. It is still hurtful. There's still a betrayed partner. All of those things are devastating to your primary connection that that you had intended when you connected with that other person.
I want to add to that. It's in our world, it's not at all unusual for a guy to say, well, I met my current spouse by having an affair. Well, what ended your last relationship? I was having an affair. And recently, what ended your first marriage? They're now on their third. I was having an affair. And so when you see those repetitive patterns, even if they're not acting out with tons of people, it's like, why do you need to always constantly? And by the way, men are lily pad jumpers. Even the healthiest among us want to leave this relationship and jump onto the next one. I do understand that's kind of how we're built. But this is a repetitive pattern over and over. And it's not unusual for me to say to the person who's been having sex, they'll say, oh, this affair partner, they're really the one. They're really the one I need to be with. I just finally figured out I married the wrong person, whatever. And of course, I say to them, this is an addict. Have you flirted with anyone else while you're in this affair? Well, yeah, have you had sex with anyone else? Well, a couple of people. Have you paid for sex? Well, yeah, but I still love this person, and this is really the person. And what they don't see is their behavior is already continuing in the next relationship, even though they say this is the person. When you start to see what they're doing in addition, I kind of say, well, if this is the person, why are you doing all of this other stuff? So I do think that in a very simple way that non-addicts are much more relational. They're actually deeply connected, even if they're in an affair. And our folks feel connected, but it's much more of an intensity, sneaky, hiding. They get a lot out of the intensity of all of that, rather than if you're having an affair, you don't feel good about that. You want to hide it. You don't want people to, all that. Anyway, it is not splitting hairs when we're going through it in detail. And that's one of the reasons that I think I do good work. I think the treatment center does good work because assessment is everything. I have to assess. I was just talking to, we're going to have a new psychiatrist coming on. I'm really excited about lots and lots of experience like the guy. And, we talk about how many folks come in also for co-occurring. By the way, someone comes in and it's just like, well, I just have an alcohol problem. And then I'm doing this, and then I'm doing this, and then I'm doing this. Many of our clients come in with emotional alcohol problems and other related problems. So anyway, it is not easy to pick apart. Um, and it's one of our best skills, I think, is assessment. And sometimes I honestly have someone for a week and a half, and all I'm doing is figuring out what the heck is wrong with them, because no one has said, no one has identified, they've never had a good therapist. Tammy and I've had so many people come in there incredibly depressed. They haven't been functioning well. And how they deal with the addiction when there are other mental health issues going on, which no one has ever identified. And if they don't deal with that, it's kind of like this. So I think that um, you may not know in the moment, and the behaviors may look the same in the moment, but when we or some professional assesses for the larger picture, you can really tell the difference. But to you, it's, well, having an affair and they're having an affair, what's the difference? To the professional, it becomes very clear once we're involved that this is different than that. And that's what you need us for, because you may not know, but we can help you find
Well,
out.
you've talked before about, and we don't have to pick this all apart, but someone who's having an affair with friends or colleagues or whatever, that is very different than somebody who's, doing it in a more distant way or bringing it into the home. So understanding that, and even, I've talked with you and Dr. David too about, the type of if you're using substances, what substance is being utilized is very telling, to a trained professional. If they're using, food or gaming or gambling in conjunction with a sexual, all of those things, it represents something on, about that client. It isn't just, it isn't just a client in the same program and do the exact same thing with every single person, and it's all going to be fine. So I agree with you that having a professional team that can really understand and unpack things. We've had guys that have been to lots of other places, and those things were not identified and addressed. And unfortunately for them and for their betrayed partner, that it was unsuccessful. But when they come to us, we can help them in a different way. So
And I will
okay.
say something about that. I was just talking to this new psychiatrist who I really like about this, which is, people come in and it's amazing what comes out during the course of treatment. You have no idea how much more there is. And recently I was seeing a guy who came in and he was sexually acting out and he couldn't stop. And then we realized he was depressed. And then we realized he was drinking. And so he'd get depressed, he'd drink, and he'd go out to have sex with strangers. You can't just we couldn't just deal with the mental health issue. We couldn't just deal with the addiction issue. We couldn't just deal with the substance issue. And that's, I think, what we're particularly good at is putting all those pieces together. And what I was saying is that we have people coming back from fancy treatment centers, and I read their report, comes back to me as a therapist, and it says stuff like, well, they're workaholic and they're love addicted and they have a sex, and it's like, but are they depressed? Are they anxious? Do they have Asperger's? Because if you don't identify all that stuff, they will go round and round in circles hating themselves because they can't get where they need to. So multiple issues, I don't know if we got affairs, but multiple issues are often what we're seeing that unfortunately don't get fully identified. And this all goes back to, is the person coming in who has an affair? Is the person coming in who's an addict? And that's what the work is for, is to figure that out.
So you just mentioned love addict. So the next question is, how can I tell if my SA partner is also a love addict? These are
And
from
you're
the
not
previous one,
doing,
so you aren't going to see.
oh, okay,
No,
you're not
these are,
doing new ones
I've
yet.
got a handful of these. So it's how can I tell if my SA partner is also a love addict?
Well, so I don't know the answer to that specifically because I don't know the person and I don't know your situation, but I can tell you how I look at it, is that sex addiction is kind of a lower level problem, almost a more, in my world, primitive problem, meaning you don't want to know the person, or you just know the person and have sex with them. You're not really connected to them. You're not really interested. It's the body parts that you want. It's the person wanting you. It's the arousal. It's the chase and the hunt and, getting that person to want. All of that stuff is sex addiction. And it's a lot of objectifying body parts. If I have sex, if this person desires me, then I'm okay. Then my needs are met, or whatever it is for that person. But when love addiction comes along, what we call love addiction, it's more like graduate school for sex addicts, meaning that now I objectify the person, not just their body parts. So as a sex addict, I want them to fill the emptiness inside of me by desiring me sexually. In love addiction, which is a step up, is I want someone who will love me and care about me because we all need to be loved, but I don't really care who they are. They're also an object to me. So in love addiction, I'm looking for the feeling that I get from someone who's interested in me. And when I'm not alone, I see that as love. And so I go to that situation over and over and over again, because what happens is I get involved, fall in love with someone that isn't really good for me, or isn't the right person, or isn't really someone I'm interested in, but I fall in love with the feeling of falling in love and all that emotional intensity. And then when it goes south, because I usually didn't pick the right person, I picked someone who would make me feel a certain way. But healthy people say, what do I like about them? Not how do they leave me feeling? And the feelings that I have for them are built on what I learn about them. That's not a love addict. A love addict is just please love me, please take care of me. As long as you're attending to me, I don't need to know a lot about you. And then when they do find out a lot about the other person, half the time they're not someone they want. Or they say, I don't know why I picked this person. Or, well, you pick them because of how they leave you feeling. And a lot of love addicts will have a month, 2 month, 3 month relationship, and then they're out and they're on to the next person. And they'll say, well, I wasn't attracted to them anymore, or it didn't really get it. What they really mean is it got scary, it got real. I didn't really know them that well, and so I was out. Um, yeah. Thoughts, Tammy? The
No, I
graduate school of
appreciate
sex
that.
addiction.
Yeah, you've shared that before, and I agree. And interestingly, I've had betrayed partners call, and they perceive that they're a love addict, and I'm like going, because you care about this person, it's helping them unpack that. No, you care about a person who's got some brokenness, but that doesn't mean you're you're a love addict. And so it's really helpful to have you, talk about, how the objectification of the person and what you're doing for me is really all I care about.
And seduction, I think, is a really big piece of what you see in the love
Mm.
addicts. How can I be what you want me to be in order to charm you? And if I'm just having sex with sex workers and looking at porn, my skill set at being particularly charming, engaging aren't particularly important. But love addicts are very good at, I'm vulnerable and please come rescue me, or I'm strong and I'll take care of you. Whatever you need me to be in order to get you hooked, that's what I'm going to be. And then, of course, they don't
Mm.
know us either. So anyway, we got lots of questions coming up. Tammy,
Yes,
what's next?
well, we've got two more, I think, from before. So this one is, as a betrayed partner, I struggle with waiting for the next shoe to drop. I feel he is finally understanding what it takes to begin a healthy recovery, and he is doing the work. How do I begin to open up and be welcoming to his recovery journey? I want to be able to receive what he has to say without the resentment. I love my SA husband, but I have detached so much. I feel like I'm speaking. I feel fake in speaking with him. I don't feel genuine. I'm so scared to get hurt again. This is a very common situation for betrayed partners.
Do you want to start challenge, start responding before I do? That would be helpful.
Yeah. One of the things I think is, in your integrity, um, like, why do you feel like you have to show up any other way than who you are? He has hurt you. He has a long ways to go. You said SA husband, so he has a long ways to go to show you that he's trustworthy. Just because he starts to look like he's doing the things right, which is great, it really is about action and not lip service, but that's a journey. And it's fair for you to be 12, 18 months behind his journey. So if he's
Hmm.
finally now starting to, show up differently, great, and let him continue to build on that trust. I would encourage you, as a betrayed partner, on the Seeking Integrity site in January, we have a betrayed partner work group starting again, and it's about healthy boundaries, communication. I mean, it really is those foundational
Anger.
pieces of, yeah. How do you deal with that? Dr. Crystal Hollenbeck did a webinar, and she'd done a podcast with you, Dr. Rob, about anger, for betrayed
Hmm.
partners, and that's posted on the sexandrelationshiphealing.com site. It was really a good one, but it talks about, she talked about that. So it's fair for you to have anger, and this person has hurt you for a longer period of time, and then all of a sudden now he's starting to do things right. Well, that isn't yay. That's like,
Yeah.
okay, I am gonna hold on. I'm gonna wait and see. He can get support from his group. Oh, I was thinking, if he hasn't already done it, the Sex Addiction 101 work group would be a fantastic start. If he's already done that one, then Out of the Doghouse. Dr. Rob mentioned that book, but there's a work group too on that. Those are 6-week psychoeducation courses. They are not treatment, they are not therapy. Many therapists recommend them for their clients to help support the work that they are doing. They see them doing better faster with those live facilitated work groups. So check those out. And you can always email me, Tammy, TAMI at seekingintegrity.com, if you've got questions. So
Hey, Tammy, did that say how long that this had been going on, or how long? Because
no, but this feels early, because it says, I feel he is finally understanding what it takes to begin a healthy relationship. So for whatever period of time, he's finally turning the corner and starting to do the work. So I feel
so
like the
when
clock
Tammy,
is like at maybe 1 o'clock.
well, what I was saying, and that sort of feeds right into what Tammy was saying, is that, it's a lot easier to feel good about where they are when they've been working on this for a year. When you've seen a steady, stable experience of them doing it, at 3 months or 6 months, or I wouldn't expect, it's great that someone got into recovery. It's great that they're working on it. It's great that you have hope for the relationship. But your anger, your disappointment, your hurt, that can go on for a long time. And that depends on whether he's doing the work. If you don't see him at meetings, if you don't see him getting a sponsor, if you don't see him in therapy, if you don't see him really actively working on it. And by the way, spouses, when you nag us to go to this and go to that, you can expect we're not doing well, because our recovery, if we're really in it, I say, I'm going off to my meeting, have a good night, or here on Thursday, I'm going to do this. You should never have to say, aren't you going to those meetings anymore or whatever? That's my job. And if you find yourself nagging your spouse, and I don't mean nagging in a negative way, I mean questioning, what are you doing? And are you doing this and are you doing that? And you're running their recovery, that's a problem. And I think that's also part of what would make me uncomfortable is, I appreciate hearing what you're doing, but I don't want to direct it and I don't want to be worried about it and I don't want to ask you about it. But as Tammy said, it can take a year or longer for a spouse to feel that they can begin to trust again. And of course, us addicts were like, well, it's been 90 days and I'm doing all the stuff I should be doing. So why haven't you forgiven me? Or I've been going to meetings for 90 days and I've been in therapy and aren't I great? Don't you want to just cheer for me? And it's like, no, you ruined my life and I hate you. And I'm not going to cheer for you for all this hard work, but your therapist can cheer for you. The guys in the other meetings can cheer for you. It's just that I'm the one you hurt. And my job is to lick my wounds and come to peace with it, not to make you feel good for the things you should have been doing in the first place. So forgive yourself. Don't, and here's one more thing for your spouses, don't ever feel that us acting out is a result of your anger, your disappointment, your fear. I've had so many spouses say, well, I'm afraid to get too angry because maybe they'll go act out again. Or what if I completely cut them off from sex? Aren't they going to need it and go to other people? And as I said a million times, when someone's upset or they're not getting sex or they're having an unhappy marriage, there's a whole lot of things they can do other than go have sex with strangers and affairs. If I am fighting in my relationship and I'm not doing well, I can see a therapist. I can find a golf game with friends to spend more time and feel better about myself. I can get a divorce. But to sit around and say, well, if my spouse wasn't this, and if they weren't that, and they were just this, and if they were just cheering for me more, then I wouldn't do these things, is much easier for us because it's easier for us to point at something outside of ourselves and say, that's why I'm this way. It's work. It's my spouse. It's travel, whatever it is. And of course, it's always a choice. No matter how miserable my life might be, it is always my choice to go drink, to go use, and to go sex or gamble or whatever it is, because there are so many other choices that anyone could make. When I justify it by saying it's your fault, that means I'm not really taking any responsibility for what's really going on. So
I want to go back to what you talked about with nagging. I hear no. It's when a partner does not feel safe because the actions are not transparent. Of like, yeah, this person is on the recovery journey. I see them taking the actions that they need. I start to see the changes. I I hear regularly because I talk to lots of people. I don't have any desire to do that anymore. And I'm like, huge red flag. You may not have a desire right now, but you will, or you'll switch to something else because this doesn't magically go away. This is a chronic condition. This is lifelong, and having a plan for what we're going to do when we are triggered. You may feel like you're in the doghouse right now and okay, I'm going to be really good and I'm not going to do that right now, and the whole desire has been removed, but something will happen. That's called life. And so when an addict says that, when a partner is like, oh, he's really doing good, and I think that's all behind him, huge red flag. I'm like, that's when I would be waiting for the other shoe to drop, because that is an unrealistic expectation for any of us to magically be, oh, the desire is gone and therefore, I mean, well, enough said. Okay, we have
well,
one
I
more
want to
question
actually
from
say something
before. Go
about
ahead.
that
Okay,
because
please.
I just was working with a gentleman who said, I really don't have any desire to do any of that anymore. It's just completely gone. And how long have you been feeling that? Well, ever since I got caught. And yeah, as soon as you're in trouble, whether you have a DUI, you're not going to want to drink for a while. Whether gamble your kid's college fund and get caught, you're not going to. Crises and consequences do leave us not wanting to do whatever it is for a period of time because we're scared and we're worried and we're upset. And the last thing we want to do is get anywhere near that thing that got us in trouble. However, it will be back. And that's what I say to the men I work with is when those feelings have gone away, that's when you need to do all the hard work because they will be back. And as we say, I've heard this so many times, while I'm working on my recovery, the addict inside of me is doing push-ups in the corner, meaning that part of me is just ready to come back and it will come back. And you better be prepared for what you need to do when it does. Um, yeah. So,
Well, or another form of escape. Like I was talking to somebody recently who said, "Well, I haven't acted out with people, but like it's chronic porn and masturbation, so it's highly problematic. The partner is devastated, and so yes, it's not the same, but you're still, it could be chemicals, it could be gaming, it could be whatever you're using in an unhealthy way to escape and numb out. The problem for addicts is we don't have the skills to do life on life's terms, and so we find maladaptive coping mechanisms, and if we aren't using this one, we're going to find something else that numbs us out, helps us escape, so that we don't have to deal with reality. So okay, one more. Hi, I'm a PA husband, and my betrayed spouse has been consistent the whole time that my betrayal is too much and she is done. I'm still holding on to hope that we can work it out. How do I stay motivated in my recovery when my spouse is adamant that they are done? And at what point is it unhealthy for my recovery and my betrayed spouse's recovery from trauma for me to continue to hold on to the relationship? Am I re-traumatizing my spouse by trying to hold on and work it out? So it feels like a couple questions. The first one is,
yeah.
How do I stay motivated in my recovery when my spouse is adamant that they're done?
Okay, let's answer that one.
Yes.
So, if your motivation for your recovery is what someone else does or doesn't do, it's not going to help over time. We use the term higher power, which means something or someone greater than myself that gives me hope and is a place I can turn for healing, whatever that means for you. But something that your higher power cannot be is your wife or your husband. We have, at Seeking Integrity, every guy comes in and he's, why are you here? Well, my wife this, well, my husband that, they're there because they're in trouble. But what was I going to say about that? What else, Tammy? What do you want to add to that? Oh, there's multiple
The,
questions, right? So,
yes.
what,
Well, to that piece, though,
right,
to me, it's I- if I don't take care of me now, say this relationship doesn't work out, you're still
right.
going to be the same person that's problematic and is going to go wreak havoc on another relationship. The only person I can change is me, and so I stand no chance of dealing with life on any kind of good terms if I don't do my recovery. So that would be why to stay motivated, the recovery.
Because you
And I
don't
think
want
you
to
were
live like this anymore.
right. And like guys do come into our program and they're looking to, I need to get the spouse off my back and I need to show them, it's kind of like checking off the boxes. But the people that are really going to make it work are the ones that go, I get it. I need to do this for myself, and then all of the other things, fall into place, not magically, but I stand a chance at doing life well. We're seeking integrity. I love that about our program, that we personally strive for integrity and we want to help clients have that as well. That's what living well is, living in integrity. So that's, do you have
And
anything
I
else
want
to
to
add
say
to that part? Yeah, go ahead.
one more
Hmm.
thing about that, which is, we run a treatment program and most people come in trouble. And, let's say they're, let me say this in the right way. So let's say I have once each day I have a call with my spouse. And so I had a really nice call with my spouse this morning before I started the treatment day. And I come into group and I'm like, oh, today's great. I'm having a really good day. I had a really good talk with my spouse. I'm really feeling encouraged about the work I'm doing. And then the next day in the morning, they have a terrible talk with their spouse because you guys go up and down like a roller coaster. And all of a sudden we have a terrible call. And then they come in like, what's the point? Nothing's working out. And it's all going well. It's just they are riding up and down on the back of their relationship and their hopes for change. And you spouses know you're on a roller coaster, and one day you hate us and one day you love us, and ambivalent love. So for us to ride our recovery and to put the cart on the horse of, how are you feeling today? Do you love me? Do you not me? Are you going to stay with me? Are you not? That isn't it, because that situation may change many times. But I'm seeking something unchanging in myself, which is stability and self-love and not doing things that I hate myself for. So what's the
So
next
the
part
next
of
piece
that?
of it is, how do I, oh no, is it unhealthy for my recovery and my betrayed partner's recovery to continue to hold on to the relationship? And the final piece of it, which is still part of that, is, am I re-traumatizing my spouse by trying to hold on and work it out?
Well, I don't think we have the whole picture there because I don't really know what the spouse wants or doesn't want from what I hear.
The spouse is adamant that they are done.
Oh, well, then I think you have to respect that, and I don't think it's unhealthy to say I love you and I'm really hoping that we work it out. And, could we give it a couple of months to see how it goes? Give it 3 months and then we'll go to couples therapy or whatever. But I got to tell you, when someone's done, they're done. And there ain't nothing in the world that you can change their minds. You may get them for a few moments to feel, oh, yes, but eventually they're going to go back to the decision they've made. When someone makes, I mean, that's not a little decision, that's a big decision. And I say this often, I'll say it every time I do this. The opposite of love is not hate. When your spouse comes in and like, I can't stand you and you've ruined my life and I don't know if I want to live with you. And that's actually passion. They're still in there with it. They're still hanging in there. It may not be love, it may be hate, but they're both passionate, intense feelings directed toward you. But the opposite of love is indifference. When I have a spouse say, well, I'm not really sure I want it to go forward and, I'm kind of done. It's been too difficult. And I realize that they're not in anymore, that they're sitting back from there and they're saying, I've seen the anger, I've seen the love, and, I'm kind of done with both. And that's the person I think who's really moving beyond the relationship because the passion, the intensity, the hope, the fear, it's kind of gone. And they're just waiting to keep moving on. So, it is not unfair for you to say to your spouse, I wish we could work it out. Can we do this kind of therapy? Can we do that kind of therapy? Could we put things on hold? But yeah, it is unhealthy for you to say to your spouse, to beg them, to try to convince them. They are where they are and they get to make their own decisions. And by the way, we, as sex addicts, we have manipulated our spouses enough. We need to leave them alone. And maybe what they're looking for is our respect for where they're coming from. And that might be the very thing that brings them back. I don't know. But yes, it is unhealthy to try to convince. Don't pull out the pictures of your wedding and look when we were happy. And don't get the kids to say how, I mean, just let them do what they need to do. Say what you need and say what you'd like to see happen. And then the rest is not up to you, it's up to them.
Okay, so now we're going to go to the ones
So,
that are current.
okay.
So the first one is, how would a person struggling with co-occurring substance abuse and porn love addiction ideally prioritize which addiction to handle first?
Well, let me say this. We just had someone in who was doing this. If someone is chronically drinking or using, what drugs and alcohol do, one of the primary things they do is disinhibit us. They take away uncomfortable feelings. This is one of the reasons why men like to get women drunk at a bar, because once you've had a few drinks, you lose your focus on taking care of yourself and what you want to do, and because it's like, woo, let's have some fun. And so, someone who has an active substance abuse problem has a very difficult time turning down behaviors. I mean, it's sort of like that thing, if I've had a few drinks and it's okay for me to drive, they don't think about the consequences and what it really means. So, and they're going to get in that car. So, um, you have to deal with the substances first because they're not going to be able to follow the boundaries and the structure that it takes to heal from a behavior when they're still drinking and using, because they're not going to be able to say no, or they're going to go to the wrong, or they're going to say no to this and go to the wrong situation somewhere else. And it's not unusual, by the way, for people to drink, use, and have sex at the same time. So the sex workers I go to, they have the drugs. And even though I've been trying to get sober, I haven't been able to because the places of people I go for sex are where the drugs and alcohol are. I will say this, though, that there are people who just can't. They can't stop using. They can't stop using and they can't stop doing the porn. And when they stop the porn, they go back to the using. When they stop the using, and that's someone who needs to come to a treatment center because someone who can't put them down is saying, this is too much for me and I need to be in a safe place where I can't get to either one. And you will hold me so that I emotionally, so that I can tolerate the feelings that come up so I don't run to one or the other. And the problem for those folks is they start to work on the sex addiction and then they want to go drink and use and they get sober on the drinking and using and they want to go to run sexual behavior. And Tammy knows more than anybody because she's a lot in AA meetings how many folks get sober and then they're hanging out by the coffee machine waiting for the next attractive person to walk up so they can start flirting with them and all this because they don't have the drugs and alcohol anymore. So they're looking for a new form of intensity and distraction. So you have to do the substance abuse, but pretty much you got to do it all together. Some people work both programs. I know someone who's in AA and they're in a sex addiction recovery program. But if you don't get a handle on the substance abuse, then there's nothing else that's going to happen with eating or gambling or spending or sex, because you literally don't have control over yourself. So Tammy, did you want to add that? I think we
I
got
do.
that. But
Dr. David Fawcett has a drop-in group, and it is a unique group on Tuesday nights, but it's chemsex, and it's for people struggling with co-occurring chemical and sex addiction. And so whether it's porn and straight gay, doesn't matter, but it really is, if you're struggling with co-occurring chemical and sex addiction, or you're in sobriety from that drop-in group is specifically for co-occurring, because otherwise you're right, and for those, we joke around in meetings of like, if we go to all the meetings that we qualify for, we could spend like lots of time in different meetings. And so, there are principles, but that are applied across the board for things. And and it's important, because real recovery is that, not that I'm minimizing and stopping this one, but I'm still doing all of these other things. It's being able to tolerate uncomfortable feelings and not, turning to something that is problematic. So I agree with Dr. Rob, and I think it's really tough to try to do this out there. And so if you have the ability to get help, we have some clients that have gone to chemical, like the chemical addiction was, needed detox and, a higher level of care, and then they transferred to our program because we are uniquely qualified. But we have a lot of guys, that are using some form of substances, and come, they are not a 14-day. We have 14, 21, or 28. They are not a candidate for 14 days. They're 21 or ideally 28 days. But man, having a foundation of recovery and being able to live differently after that short of a time, when most people have been doing this for years or decades. And so investing in your best investment ever for me was, in my recovery, and it's been a journey, but man, I've stacked up a fair number of days of not causing problems in my life because of my acting out. So, okay.
Oh, I wanted to say one more thing, Tammy, about
Mm-hmm.
porn, because
Mm-hmm.
um, and I just want to throw this out there because it crossed my mind. I hear a lot of I'm not looking at porn anymore. I'm just looking at Instagram. I'm just looking at
Yeah.
Facebook. I'm just looking at
Not
YouTube.
porn.
Meaning, I'm just looking at someone who's wearing a bathing suit, that big, but I'm not using it because it's not porn. And trust me, and on those sites, believe me, there is porn available on all of those sites if you look in the right places. So somebody who's sitting and looking at half naked bodies, even though they're not looking at a porn site, they're not sober. They're still losing themselves in the intensity and putting themselves into that situation and not taking care of themselves with or without masturbation. So for you spouses, if you hear the, well, I'm just looking at this, I would be worried, because we just don't need to look at any of that. We could chat with someone and write them a note, a family member, a friend, and we don't have to look pictures back and forth. That's a choice we sometimes, and sometimes it gets us in trouble. I'm looking at a landscape. I'm looking at my friends' pictures of families, and oops, now I'm looking at this. So anyway, it's not just porn. Yeah, I want to throw
No,
that
we
out
call
there.
it not porn, because because it's not identified as porn, but they're objectifying, they're lust and fantasy, like it's completely doing the exact same thing, in their brains that porn was, so, and we've talked about this before too, Dr. Rob, but like the euphoric recall, the fantasy recall, there's a lot of, particularly with porn, my experience is that, like I don't even have to be looking at it, I can recall it. So I think that that's a challenge for, to not just, kind of zone out and be pulling images up, and kind of replaying them
Right.
in our heads, that without technically going to look at something.
Well, and one's going to lead to another. I'm just looking at this and looking at these catalogs, and oh, well, that's exciting. Maybe I'll just look at a little bit of porn, and then I'm off and running. I did want to say something to you sexting folks and you sugar baby folks, meaning sexting is when you're sending nude pictures of yourself back and forth. Sugar babies is generally women who are looking for a man to take care of them or financially or give them gifts. And you'll see them on websites saying, when it's like a dating website where it usually says, what do you like? And someone says, well, I like flowers, I like gardening, I like the museums, I like baseball, whatever. What they say is, I like gifts, I like vacations, I like cash. But my point about all this is, perhaps you, back in the day, it used to be a lot easier to get away from with things than it is now. Because I won't say that addicts are stupid. I'll just say that they're made stupid by their addictions. So many men come into treatment now, and this is really horrifying. Like, I sent this person a pic, and they decided that if I didn't give them money, they were going to send it to everyone I knew and my entire family and everyone I worked with. And they do. I have had men come into Seeking Integrity, and he's like, well, they sent that picture or that video to my wife, to my kids, to people I work with. It's a nightmare. And then the sugar baby thing is the same. It's like, people start pouring their heart out, and you're going to be special and you're going to be wonderful. And I send you money this, and I send you for money for that. And all of a sudden it becomes, if you stop sending me money, if you stop being engaged with me, I'm going to go to everyone you know. So trust me, there's a lot of blackmail going on out there, and it's horrifying and it's scary, and it is illegal, by the way. You can go to the authorities about it, but there's no worse nightmare than for a sex addict than hearing, I have a picture of you naked, aroused, and I'm going to send it to your kids and everyone you know. What a nightmare. And so be cautious before you send those pictures out, and watch out where you're going to look for people, because it comes back to us in all kinds of ways it didn't come back to us 20 years ago.
You're right. I hear those stories all the time too, and it's high dollars, and um, uh, eh, eh, and it's employers and family members, and I mean, I can't imagine a parent getting, receiving this information too. So it's challenging. So okay, next question is, how do you know when it's sex addiction versus an affair? My husband of 15 years had a 5-year affair with a friend and flirtatious flirted with other women in person, text, social media. He has also admitted to having a porn addiction. Is this sex addiction? We're 9 months post D-Day, and I worry we're putting all our eggs in the sex addiction bucket, but something doesn't feel right to me. We haven't had a formal therapeutic disclosure yet. We're both in therapy individually and as a couple, working hard on recovery. We're $20,000 down in therapy spend, and I want to make sure we're putting our money where it should be.
Well, I say, come on out here and visit with us, and send us your spouse, and we will absolutely make sure that they're getting the right therapy. And I kid you not. But what comes up for me is, I trust that something doesn't feel right to you. And I don't know, if you don't say whether this is a trained therapist or if they have
Yeah,
specialty in this
they did not
area.
identify that. Yeah, so
You didn't say,
right.
I don't think if you're getting support as a spouse, if they're getting support in 12-step meetings. So I don't have enough information here to know, are you putting all your eggs in one basket? Is it the right path you're going down? Because I simply don't know. We haven't had formal disclosure. So who knows what you don't know? But I'll tell you this, and I'm going to be honest, I'm going to be kind. Um, there's more than a 5-year affair with a friend and flirting with other women in person. There were other women. You don't flirt with other women online and text and sex and not do something with them if they write back with any sort of thumbs up. So I doubt, sincerely, no offense to your marriage or to him, and I'm glad to be wrong, but I doubt it was one affair. And I doubt that all those flirting and in-person flirting, text, I mean, I just don't believe, doing what I do, I don't really believe that that hasn't happened. And so part of what would make me feel uncomfortable is, it feels like something else is going on that I don't know about, or it feels like something else is still going on that they haven't talked about. So, yeah, so I said, by the way, I responded, and Tammy won't like this, but I responded to the 20,000 in therapy, because I think 2 weeks with us is less than that, if I recall.
It is.
And we will put your spouse exactly where they need to be. But there are so many therapists who don't know what they're doing with this. There's so many therapists who don't know how to diagnose, assess. Um, and yeah, I would be worried, but I wouldn't be worried that you're putting all your eggs in the sex addiction bucket, because a good therapist is looking at all of it. A good therapist is saying, is this person have any mental health issues? Do they have any substance issues? What is the nature of their relationship together? You know, and how do they have trauma? All kinds of things that someone's looking for. So if all you're talking about, or all that's being discussed, is sex addiction, yeah, something wouldn't feel right to me, because the basket you're talking about, or the bucket, is not just sex addiction. It's the much larger issue of how this person got there and, what else they're doing that's problematic and all of that. But I would trust your gut. I think there is stuff you don't know about. I have a feeling some of it may still be going on, just my gut. And if you want directions for therapists who might be better at what we do, it's TAMI at seekingintegrity.com. And Tammy and I've both been in this field as educators, trainers, and clinicians for almost 20 years together in different places. So Tammy knows almost every therapist in the country who's been trained, and I'm one of the people who trained them. So all I'm saying is we don't get kickbacks from therapists, but we do make really good recommendations. And we're more than glad to point you toward free stuff, paid stuff, whatever you want. Just drop us a note. Tammy, did you have something else you want to
I
add to
do,
this?
yeah, because I'm going to take the high road with this, and I'm going to say, so you're working with qualified professionals. You've got great CSAT certified sex addiction therapists. That his will have given him a battery of assessments, and will have good information on, what is going on. What we don't hear is, beyond therapy, what else is your husband doing? What support are you getting? But what is your husband doing? Because we mentioned earlier, it's like it is about action. So, and seeing the best therapist on the planet, once a week for 50 minutes to address issues that are far more than the 5 years that you know about. I'm with Dr. Rob. This is a chronic condition. There's way more, and it matters and it doesn't matter. It's bad.
Right.
That there are problems. So you getting support for you to deal with what you need to deal with, and I mean, we have lots of free stuff, and those are supportive. But for those that can afford, to get the real help, it is really a benefit, to have the right help. But in conjunction with that, are there 12-step meetings? Is he working with a sponsor? Has he done steps 4 through 9? That's like, he's been around 9 months. To me, that would be, he could easily, have gone through, not easily, they're not fun. I mean, honestly, it's work, but he could have navigated through that with the work of a sponsor. So what is he doing? Has he done our sex addiction 101 work group? Like that would be key. So if he's with a certified sex addiction therapist, if they've gone through, all of that, if you're working with a trade partner, trauma specialist who, is looking from a codependent lens, the prognosis is good. Going through formal therapeutic disclosure, the only reason you do that is to set the foundation, for healing the relationship. So, but addicts lie. They lie to themselves and to everyone else. So understand. I mean, we hear, unfortunately, right now the record is 11 years that I've heard of that somebody's lied to their therapist. Like, you're paying somebody to go to the therapist and you're lying to the therapist. And we don't take it personally. That's part of of the addiction. So understanding that, I mean, it is why I am big on seeking integrity. Like, we strive for our personal integrity. We hold that as a value. We want to help clients, have that so they can show up differently for themselves and for relationships. So, so that's a more oblique answer. You don't know all of it. There is qualified help, and it really is lean into that. Money spent on getting the right help is a good investment in yourself and in your future. I'm like I said, best invest. A couple of years ago, Dr. Rob, I like math. A couple of years ago, I thought, I wonder what my recovery has cost on a daily basis. Now, it's been long enough. I had to guess at a lot of the numbers, but I did the calculation on a daily basis over the time that I've been in recovery, and it was a really good value. And every day that I stay in
Mm.
recovery and don't mess up my life and, make a chaos for everyone else, that investment, continues to pay dividends.
And I wanted to be right there with you, Tammy, which is sometimes clients will say to me, I think I remember saying myself, well, I'm gonna give me therapy forever. Is that really what it's my life? And I'm thinking, well, you would be fortunate to be able to have the resources, because I need a guide throughout my lifespan, whether it's a sponsor or people or clergy or a therapist. I need people who understand my challenges and can redirect me when I'm struggling. And most addicts I know did not get the the kind of structured support and responsiveness that they needed to become adults. And, we just don't have the right answers to a lot of things because we don't know them. And whether it's lying or relationships or so that's why we rely on people to know what they're doing to help us. I did want to say one more thing though, and I want to make sure all of you guys, spouses, hear this. It isn't just sex addicts that lie. We have special reasons for lying because we know that you personally will feel betrayed if we are honest. But alcoholics lie. They
All
lie about how
addicts.
much they drink, where they drank, are they drinking? Substance abusers lie, gamblers lie. I mean, it is endemic to being an addict that you're alone in your own little bubble doing what you want to do. And then when anything gets in the way that might interfere with that, you're going to lie about it, you're going to push it out of the way, whatever. So I do want to say to you who think, well, yeah, sex addiction, of course they lie because of the nature of the disorder, the sex part. All addicts lie. And all addicts come into my office and say, oh, I only Tammy and I, with alcoholics, it's kind of a fun, it amuses me as a part of the work where someone will come in and say, well, I only have 2 drinks a night. That's it. And here's what you need to be a trained addiction therapist. The next question is, how big are the drinks? Because I know people have a glass of wine and that's a drink. I know other people take a 64-ounce big gulp and that's their drink. So people lie, they minimize, they avoid, it doesn't matter what the addiction is. It's just so much more personal in these cases where you folks who are partners have been violated emotionally and physically.
So the next question is, can a sex addict be a sex addict and a love addict living both lives to feed their dysfunctional addict?
Yes, I don't think we need we talked about this earlier, but the answer is yes. You can both be having affairs and acting out sexually and be married. And as I said, I've worked with people like, oh, this is the best affair ever, and this is the person, and this is the person I should probably be with. And then, but they're also seeing prostitutes and they're also masturbating porn, and they think it's this, but it's actually much bigger. So of course, yes.
Can someone stay a high functioning sex addict?
So I'm not sure. I have some ideas, but what do you think they mean about high functioning, Tammy?
I was a very high functioning addict. I showed up for work. I did all of those things, and I was a hot mess, at the same time. And so, I know for sure, for a period of time, and then poop's going to hit the wall. Like it just is going to, like so. Yes, but we talked earlier about someone who's having sex with coworkers, and it all seems to be going well, doing their professional life, and then somebody reports it. So yes. And I think honestly, for the compartmentalization, it is how we function, is we compartmentalize, and this is our acting out, this is our work, this is our relationship, and and we just go from one compartment to the next compartment. So to me, absolutely, until things start coming off the rails.
Yeah, I want to absolutely support Tammy. I mean, certainly, many people can afford treatment where what we do anyway, it's not ridiculously expensive, but we certainly, I think, because of the quality of work we do, we have certainly lots of wealthy people come in. And I work with people, I mean, today, for example, and I'm making this person up, but they could be there today, trust me. Someone who is CEO of a corporation and they're also a physician and they're also a researcher and they have 25 people working under them and they have all these awards and they're making all this money and they're screwing up their lives with porn and sexual acting out. I think one of the ways to look at it is, what we do in the world in terms of work and study and communicate, that's all up here. And I can be very functional up here. I am smart. I'm so functional, I could lie and get away with it. But in here, empty. In here, so can you be high functioning in the world as the world sees it? Like, great job, money coming in, sure. And if you never get caught, I feel bad for you because you've lived an empty life. I'd rather you got caught, but none caught. But probably more people get away with this and actually get caught, would be my guess. But but being able to function in the world is not the same as being able to get close to people, to be intimate with people, to be real with people, to be vulnerable, and to have meaningful, intimate relationships. It doesn't matter how successful. And by the way, let me say that too. One of the great things about a 12-step meeting, I think, one of my favorite things, is that lawyers go in and garbage cleaners go in, and people who clean someone's house go in, and people who own oil fields go in, and it doesn't matter, because what all of us in those meetings have in common is the problem. And it is amazing to me how quickly those walls fall down when it doesn't matter what you did or what I did. I mean, what you do or I do, how much money we have. It's about, we're all struggling with the same thing, and we all need to find our way out. And so, just as another part, you can be very high functioning, but you really need those peer relationships. Oh, and one more thing, you can't figure your way out of this. It doesn't matter how smart you are. Addiction requires others, objectivity, support, structure, challenges, people to lean on. It doesn't matter how many businesses you've built on your own. This particular piece is not something that people can do by themselves. And then they try and they beat themselves up, and then they get hopeless. And it's like, you just need some help. So anyway, that's about 6 answers to one question, but I like the question.
Okay. Yeah, I do too. And I was thinking, no, people get caught. I know of people who died, and no, and then, it was a man died, and his widow found his stuff. And so you get caught, just as whether you get caught before or after. So, okay. We're out of time, but I'm going
Let's
to
do a
just
couple of
ask you this one.
holiday
Yeah, yeah,
extras.
yeah.
It's Hanukkah, it's
What
Christmas.
advice do you have for grieving betrayed partners who have been dumped by their qualifier?
Well, I guess I'm wondering what advice in what way, you know? In other words, well, Tammy, what do you think they want advice with? Because there's so many different kinds of advice in this situation.
Yeah, no, grieving is grieving. And so, like, regardless of whether you chose to leave the relationship, here's my thought for you. The relationship wasn't what you thought it was. If your qualifier was lying to you, then it was an illusion of what you thought it was. Whether you're in the relationship or not, partners have to grieve the loss of the relationship they hope for, grieve the loss of the person that they thought was their partner. So it's grief. And so on some level, I would encourage you to look at how can you be empowered to go, okay, I've learned so much about myself. I'm going to get support. And eventually, when I'm ready to enter another relationship, I'm going to have a posse to make sure that I don't miss any red flags, and that I value myself enough to know that, that's that person's loss. That I know that I am good enough, I am lovable, that I have worth, and them leaving me is really about them.
I'm answering the next question by typing it.
Okay.
Go ahead. I
Okay.
can.
Okay, well, the next question is, this is just a comment. My husband lies to himself. My husband says we see things differently. So the hoops I want him to jump through, he's not willing to jump through it. That's your answer. So if he's not willing to do anything, and you've been on before, if he's not willing to do anything, you can't make him. What are your healthy boundaries to take care of you? That's, at the end of the day, that's what it is. What do you need to do to make sure you're safe? And if you stay in the relationship, which is entirely your choice, then people do that. They find out, okay, I'm not going to let his addiction dictate my emotions, my feelings, or whatever. I'm going to find joy and peace over here, and he's going to do what he's going to do. But I'm going to make sure that I'm safe financially, emotionally, spiritually, and physically. I'm going to make sure I'm taking care of myself, from those standpoints. But if he perceives that it's what Dr. Rob just said, that's an empty person who at the end of his life is going to be an empty person, and but you can't change him. So, okay. Then the last one, Dr. Rob, is I've been so shocked by the vast amount of resources. Oh,
I
you
answered
just
that
took
one.
it away. Okay, so we don't need to take care of that one. So, all right.
No, we don't. Did we get through all of
Okay,
them?
we did. Yes. So thank
So
you, Dr. Rob. And we will be off next week. So
the
on December
26th.
26th, you will not see us. On January 2nd, you will. We'll be back together again. So happy
And
holidays to everyone.
and
And
I just want to say something to you, Tammy, real quick, because this is the end of the year, and we won't see each other in this setting till the new year. It's
mhm.
not just the gifts that you give us by saying thank you, or you did a good job, or or you learned a lot. There's a gift in us working together, and I really, Tammy, I want to say that this year we've helped a lot of people. I feel a great sense of satisfaction, and I know we're doing things that others don't do in terms of how much we give away, and I think we get so much credit for that. But I do again want to thank you for all you give, not just here, but you're constantly on the phone, you're constantly answering questions, or your life's work is really helping others. And I admire you and I appreciate it, and I wish you the most wonderful holiday.
Thank you, and ditto, because this is your life's work. And again, I've said it earlier, but you are the founder of Seeking Integrity. The integrity matters, and you lead with that, and I'm grateful for that. I adore you and adore working with you. So I feel like we're a good team, and we have fun.
And I think we have all these
So
new
thanks,
questions,
everybody.
and we'll have to get to
No, they're just
them.
putting comments and thanking us,
Okay.
and that's nice. So thank you
Happy
all.
holidays, you
Yeah. So
guys. Be safe.
bye.